Hi, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. I apologize for starting a few minutes late. We had a little hiccup with ReadyTalk. The correct dial-in number for everyone who might have had the wrong one should be in the chat. But we're going to get started. Thank you for everyone's patience. So a few quick notes before we begin. We are broadcasting audio via live streaming, so the best way to join the call is using your computer speakers or headphones. And also know we will be sending the recording and the full slide deck to every single person who's on the call as well as who registered. So no worries about jotting down notes very quickly. We'll be sending that all to you after. In the essence of time, we're going to quickly introduce our speakers. So my name's Elyse Mayer from SmashFly. We also have Chris Steele from Staples. Chris, thanks so much for joining us. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself before we dive in?
Absolutely. Thanks, Elyse, and thanks everyone for taking the time out of your day to join us. Very excited to spend some time with you. So as Elyse stated, Chris Steele with Staples, currently I'm a senior manager overseeing all talent acquisition and operations for Staples, specifically looking at technology efficiencies and the ways that we can help automate and bring candidates and talent to the forefront in a much more kind of streamlined process.
Great, Chris. We're so excited that you're here. I've had a ton of conversations with Chris about what Staples is doing right now in terms of their talent acquisition transformation, and you guys are in store for a lot of really interesting perspectives from him. Really quickly about me, I'm Elyse Mayer. I'm the Director of Marketing at SmashFly. So I'm about 9 years into the marketing world. I spent a lot of my early time working for B2B agencies, working on brand strategy, lead generation and qualification, content and messaging, email strategy and demand gen. So a lot of the same things that kind of recruitment marketers do, but I've never been a TA practitioner. Since being at SmashFly for about 4 years, the best part of what I do is working with practitioners in the industry as well as our customers on bringing marketing techniques to talent acquisition. So that's kind of the best part of my day is talking to leaders like Chris, and that's kind of the conversations that brought us here today and talking about talent acquisition efficiency. So this quote that's live right now probably looks familiar to every single person on this call. And I hear this constantly from talent acquisition practitioners and leaders. We need to do more with less. We need to focus on quality, and we need to get quality faster and before our competition. It's definitely not a simple task. Everyone's talking about it. It's probably the #1 challenge in talent acquisition right now. And the challenge isn't unique to Staples. This is actually something Staples business asked of the talent acquisition function. But what is unique to Staples is how they're working to solve this challenge. So, Chris, I'll let you give a little bit of context to this and what prompted Staples' journey toward efficiency.
Yeah, and as you said, Elyse, you're looking at better quality and faster and timely and kind of all those things that I think the pain of what a lot of talent acquisition professionals are feeling. We feel that same kind of urgency to respond and we really looked at that pain and said, there's got to be a better way that we can kind of address that. Now, I'll kind of give you the landscape of what may kind of resonate with a lot of folks on the phone, us as well. We had no sourcers, really under tight budgets, minimal social presence. And when I say social presence, I mean really, ventured outside of just your typical kind of culprits of, Facebook or any type of social media. We really were struggling to take a look at how our reporting could really show truly what we were working for and what we were working with. And then really at the end of the day, the ultimate kind of, I think, kind of the straw that broke the camel's back was just really looking at the overcapacity of what our recruiters were really faced with and tasked with doing, daily. And so we really took a step back and said, there's definitely some better ways that we can, look at attracting the talent that we need and look at that talent at various aspects of acquiring it and make that much more kind of streamlined and efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, again, even being a marketer, but I mean, I talk to a lot of people about that overcapacity and kind of the pressure that's being put on talent acquisition and, recruiters. And so the big change, I think, is that the role of the recruiter is becoming much more complex. And I love Staples' take on this. But I mean, so many companies get that they need to focus on talent attraction or talent engagement, or that they have to transform or change. But right now, a lot of who's staffing on talent acquisition is recruiters and sourcers. They don't have a lot of those skills needed to make that transformation. And so it really takes a more foundational examination of how talent acquisition looks and works. And that's really what Staples started with, which is what I find, so impressive. And Chris, I know I was talking to your boss, Lisa, and she said something that really stuck with me. And I think it's kind of like what Staples is going through right now. But there are people who run and execute the business, and then there are people who figure out how to run and execute that business more smoothly. And that's kind of the segue of your guys' perspective and what you're giving the recruiter to do, but what your team and talent acquisition operations actually does. So explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think today's world, recruiters are, they're asked to take on so much, whether it's nurturing the candidate, obviously trying to manage time to fill, lengthy meetings, disposition of candidates, maintaining relationships, all the above. And, we really looked at what we call friction points within that journey of a candidate. And really what we did is we took a look back at from a candidate's perspective and said, okay, from that candidate's journey through to onboarding them well past that, what are some of the things that are being asked of our recruiters that are really just at times almost to the point where they need to make a decision. What do I do? I got to get these things done, but something's going to have to give. And so, we really looked at a way that we could not make that job of the recruiter be an either or versus let's give that the recruiter an opportunity to make an and with what they want to get accomplished and not have to have a decision and have that anxiety being driven of something's going to have to fall. And so, we spent a lot of time looking at what is bogging down the recruiter and what are ways that we can take some of those things off their plate from automation and efficiency, and then being able to look at how do we give back that kind of human part to, what we all love about our occupation. And so that's really kind of how we started.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that the answer, and I love that, is it shouldn't be an or. And, you have to do this or this. I think your solution was to make that an and how to make we need to do this and this was, again, bringing in that TA operations team. And that was to kind of automate some of the things that recruiters were doing, but then empower them to also learn. And, I always say in marketing, you wouldn't have a job in marketing if you didn't learn new technologies or adapt to emerging strategies. And I hear so many recruiters, are a little bit worried. They don't want to adopt new technologies. So many leaders are buying all of this new stuff and, that it's just not being used. And this is super smart of you guys to figure out what team actually can do this and kind of support recruiters until they can make that transition. So again, give a little bit of background on these kind of talent advisors and what your team's doing to automate things and empower recruiters.
Yeah, and it really did kind of start almost kind of from a simplicity standpoint of rebranding what internally I think our organization viewed recruiters to be. I think for the longest time, and a lot of us can relate to that recruiter was perceived as an order taker. The business has a need, they schedule an intake, and the recruiter then kind of takes that and starts down that journey of a lot of things that we just mentioned that are kind of on their plate. And I think that left the recruiter at the end of the day, maybe not feeling as well accomplished, and we wanted to change that role of the recruiter to be more of an advisory in that relationship, with the business. We wanted the recruiter to be someone that, could look at ways that they could take the population of candidates that are coming in, but not need to, again, go back to needing to make a choice on what they weren't going to be able to do for the day or maybe in that hour and what they need to get done. And so we really looked at automation. We looked at, obviously SmashFly and the CRM piece that we brought to the table for our ability to be able to have, specified outreach or large outreach to a group of folks that can be timed and it can be automated so that the recruiters are not needing to be, so locked down at their desktop or laptop emailing one-on-one candidates, and we kind of get marketing sent out to a multitude of folks, as well as, again, we really looked at, hey, what were the friction points? There's a lot of roles here at Staples that consistently, when we're vetting through a candidate and screening a candidate, that we need to go through a very similar process with each one of those candidates, whether it's certain types of scheduling for interviews or have it be the questions that our recruiters are needing to ask to screen those out. And so we brought that in and looked at being able to bring in chatbots and automation to be able to help fulfill some of those what I would call mundane tasks. And that really brought us kind of to the forefront of really kind of flipping the script of what the recruiter, was to where they were. And really, we were able to rework and take that work and redeploy it effectively to the recruiters as they gain more time because of some of those systems enhancements and technology enhancements. And when I say kind of that work, it was really spending more time nurturing relationships and spending more time with candidates that are more the passive state and getting them more aware to who we are and what we're doing as an organization.
Yeah, and so, what I'm hearing from you, and I think that the first half of this is kind of this upfront, what you guys were feeling. We're going to get into all of these individual challenges and inefficiencies and how you guys solve them. But what I'm hearing from you is people, process, technology. There was a lot in there about kind of rethinking and flip the script on nurturing and what you're doing and how that's structured. The people that you're bringing in and rethinking about what recruiters do versus what recruitment marketers do. And then as well as technology, CRM, chatbot technology. How does all this work together? And I love that you guys are really looking at this from kind of a layered transformation. You're really tackling it in a multi-dimensional way. It's the smartest way. One thing doesn't solve this. Just kind of hiring a recruitment marketer or changing what a recruiter does doesn't solve something. If you bring on a new technology, but you're not upskilling people or reinventing the process, it's not going to change everything. And if you get better people, but you don't have the right processes or tools in place, that's also all for naught. So I think that you've kind of given us that high level of people, process, and technology. So let's kind of jump into what this actually looked like. So from an inefficient to efficient and mapping current issues to key solutions, let's take a look at what was really inefficient in your TA function and how you guys specifically solved that inefficiency. This is what I think is so important, is that while you may not have all the answers, you actually had a plan on, we're going to take this from A to Z and kind of transform what we're doing. So the first one here, and what I'm kind of calling it, is recruiting in a vacuum. And I think in one of our initial conversations, I heard that Staples fills 8,500 roles a year. That's a lot of recruiting, and it's a lot of spinning wheels and starting from scratch and duplicating processes if every recruiter is working on their own recs with their own system, with their own idea of what's working and what's not. So a lot of organizations might say, great, we're going to bring in a new technology, and that's going to be the central source of info, and recruiters are going to look at their data, and they're going to learn how to optimize their processes. But in reality, that's a lot of money spent by the business, again, overtaxing those recruiters and expecting them to find what's not working and kind of work together. So does that sound about right? to you, Chris, in terms of what your recruiters were dealing with? And how did you actually make that more efficient by kind of centralizing where the insights were coming from to support recruiters?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Elyse. We really mapped out, hey, what are the inefficiencies that I think we're very blinded to us, last year and going back 2 and 3 years ago. And again, I look at those, or we looked at those inefficiencies as, there's requirements where we might get 10 or 15 or 20 applicants, and there's requirements where we may get 100 folks applying. But the journey that our recruiters need to go through with those individuals, depending upon skill set, is very much still the same. And so we knew, we really looked at, hey, what are the touch points that go throughout the life cycle of the candidate? And, I think when you look at automation, one of the things we looked at was, we looked at skill set, and we looked at the need to be able to still ensure that the recruiter was involved from a relationship standpoint. We believe that there's not a complete way that you can fully automate the process of recruitment or screening or what have you, but we wanted to make sure that we kept the recruiter involved. But an example of that is, within our light industrial space, we're getting, we might get 50 or 80 folks that apply for a role, and so we put automation in on the forefront to be able to have a chatbot go through and ask a series of screening questions that really can then take that individual to the next step in our interview, which in turn the bot, our chatbot, Olivia, then starts to ask even furthering questions. And in turn, we're able to also have the chatbot schedule interviews with the hiring manager. The recruiter is involved in that in that process with that candidate, but it eliminates a lot of those redundancies that have to occur for each one of those candidates. And I know when you and I have talked, Elyse, that you might have again 20 folks that have applied for a position, and as a recruiter, once you find that individual, and if it's the third individual that applied, you still got to vet through those 17. You still got to go through the due diligence, and so that third one applied, they go through the process and they're hired. You still have your due diligence you have to do to those other 17, and that was really kind of some time saving that we could recognize. And then as we looked at insights into the operations and really kind of reporting, what we're able to look at is from our chatbot, we're able to look at data that shows how long those individuals are interacting with the chatbot, what type of responses they're giving to the chatbot, ways that they're able to interact are very much in line with the way they would have interacted with the recruiter. So as we started to create the questions that we put into our chatbot, they were the same questions that our recruiters are currently asking right now. And we asked to get insight from the recruiters about what type of response would we like to see that would matter to moving a candidate forward. And so, we were able to gain insight around what type of, if you will, quote unquote, relationship that the candidate can have with the chatbot. And, we're finding, I think, over 85% of all folks that interact with Olivia, our chatbot, are typically thank Olivia, say have a nice day. We've had candidates even come into our office and start on their first day, and they want to meet Olivia. And we've got to unfortunately break the bad news that Olivia's not real; she's a chatbot. So it's really been phenomenal, and the fact that we're able to gather a lot of insight, the candidate is able to really understand through that journey much faster who we are, and it allows that individual to be able to partake in a conversation that can be very worthy to an applicant.
Hey, Chris. Yeah, I mean I love that you kind of talked about some of the technology here that's driving the insights. Just for everyone on the line, can you just quickly say for under TA operations what that means, like who's on your team, just so people kind of know how that's structured, and that like recruiters really aren't part of the TA team? Just take like 30 seconds to kind of talk about the structure.
Yeah, absolutely. Our from an operations team, who's on my team, is really you've got kind of myself, and then I have a project manager, and then we've got kind of project leads that are really helping look at ways to take what our process has been, and our job is to do nothing more than to consolidate technology. One of the things that we looked at was, from an efficiency standpoint, you've got a recruiter that is in an ATS, and then they're maybe in some form of outreach, whether it's a CRM or they're in Outlook, and they're bouncing around. Maybe they're in LinkedIn, and they're in Career Builder or what have you. We really are taking a look at how can we take those systems and processes and make them more efficient. So you've got myself, a project manager, project leads that are owning a lot of that, and then we're working very closely with our HRIS team to look at integration and enhancements to our current process.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, that's good. I just wanted everyone to kind of know how that structure looks at Staples. So the next inefficiency is, and we kind of talked about this, everyone wants to focus on talent attraction, but who has the time to actually do that? And I think that, that structure that you just explained, Chris, talent attraction, was initially put on the recruiters, and that was inefficient. And the way I see that is, being in marketing, it's kind of like asking sales, close all these deals, close them with a high conversion rate, make sure that they're really great customers. Oh, but also think about who you're going to close in a year or maybe 2 years and all these potential people. Sales is like, what? Are you kidding me? I need to focus on what's in front of me and getting this done. That's kind of how I think about recruiters. They don't have time to think, well, this potential person a year from now could maybe be a potential candidate. They have so many reps that they need to focus on the immediate. So the inefficiency there is they don't have time to really get the skills to focus on proactive talent attraction. And so talk a little bit about how you've made that more efficient by really thinking about hiring recruitment marketing headcount and a recruitment marketing manager to actually take that on off of recruiters' plates and be an advisor.
Yeah, I think outside of the automation, equal to that is a high excitement about our recruitment marketing team that we're building, and we really looked at, we went through and read a plethora of articles and looked at in-mail response rates, and for a lot of folks on the phone and us included, LinkedIn has become what I would say is diluted to some degree. That has been a typical avenue for outreach, albeit it's outreach at a very short, or I should say a condensed type message. And so, we wanted to look at the fact that economic pressures, unemployment rates, competitive landscape, all those kind of levers are playing factors of how we need to go to attract talent. And, that was one of the big things that we had recognized in the past was really a shortcoming of ours. But I think moving forward, how imperative it's going to be for us to have that, what I would call mastered. And to a large degree, we really took a focus at building we ought to build a COE, a Center of Excellence within TA as recruitment marketing. And so we really looked at bringing on a recruitment marketing manager that could start to set some framework. We had a lot of the tools and ideas, but I'm not a marketer. And so we wanted to bring someone in that could conceptually look at this and understand ways to how do you draw an individual that's gainfully employed, that's been working at a company for 6, 8, and 10 years? How do you bring them closer to you over time? And what we kind of say is court them, kind of date them for a little bit before you marry them. And so we wanted to be able to start to bring them closer to us through insights of who we are as an organization and share with them what maybe they don't know. And so it really became imperative for us to be able to look at how can we show our brand, how can we really look at it changing, I think, what that candidate experience has been via the channels that we all maybe have used or currently use. And then how can we really look at taking that COE and being able to take our ability to bring back data that shows response rates and shows apply rates and shows reasoning that individuals came closer to us through our recruitment marketing team. And so we hired the recruitment marketing manager. We've got a candidate experience manager. We're working to identify a recruitment marketing individual that can really kind of own job family, meaning, hey, how do we want to market to our IT organization versus how we want to market to our supply chain organization or our marketing team? And so we really wanted to be able to identify someone that could come in and really help bubble up strategies to the recruitment marketing manager and really be able to then give that back to our recruiters, ways that they can target market through our CRM towards those skill sets and kind of those lists of candidates or potential candidates and how we can market different.
And I think that's a great. First of all, I love seeing recruitment marketing titles kind of emerging in talent acquisition, and I think that this is a great segue to actually focusing on quality over quantity. I mean, that's really the whole purpose of recruitment marketing. And I think as you guys build staff in recruitment marketing, this inefficiency of thinking about quantity over quality is really going to change. And so, I mean, when I think about quantity over quality, it's not like anyone's focusing on that in talent acquisition. It's kind of just the nature of the beast. People are applying constantly. They're applying to 20 jobs. As applications get a little bit easier with LinkedIn, there's just a plethora of applicants, and it's bogging down recruiters. There's no differentiation from one to the next for the most part. How do you know which are quality? How do you actually measure quality? And I mean, fit and screening in and out is so important for talent acquisition right now. I mean, it's why we're seeing the emergence of AI. It's why we're seeing the emergence of machine learning and all of this. And I know that Staples really is taking a look at figuring out how do we get quality over quantity? How do we measure this? How do we do this? I think that recruitment marketing expertise is one part of it. But talk a little bit about specifically how you're using the AI assistant and chatbot to kind of pre-screen quality and eliminate quantity and kind of change that.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. We took a look at, I kind of reference back to, you could sit in front of a hiring manager and say to him or her that, hey, we've got 10 folks that apply for this role, and I'm going to be screening through them. And the hiring manager was excited about that. And they maybe left that meeting with optimism. What you may be left with, though, is not knowing if they were quality 10 or if you were going to have to come back in a week or 3 days and explain to that manager that the 10 that applied weren't great. And so today the hiring manager is becoming much more savvy, right? They are asking, hey, okay, you've got 10. How many are right for my role? And so we knew that we were going to have to arm recruiters a little bit differently and be able to have them be able to answer that question faster. From a chatbot or automation standpoint, we're able to utilize the chatbot to not only bring a candidate through the screening process and then scheduling process. We also have, the chatbot that, again, can sit on certain requirements that when you go and look at applying for a position, that chatbot's able to answer a myriad of questions that, again, we're populating those questions that come forward from the chatbot, but it streamlines and it takes this funnel of your 25 or 30 candidates, and it shortlists those individuals down to 5 that are much more manageable for that recruiter to be able to spend and engage with those 5. And we're able to really immediately shrink that kind of funnel down to the quality that we really want. And in turn, we're able to quickly be able to answer to the business, we've got this many folks applied, we've got this many folks that are kind of in our what I will call quality wheelhouse, and we're in the kind of the fourth quarter of bringing that individual to the forefront.
Yeah, and I think that the best thing about the chatbot, and I see a question in here just about how you're describing a recruiting assistant, it's basically a different way of saying a chat bot. When I think of bots, I just think of like really robotic answers. I think of a lot of like long lag times. The great thing about Emerson, which is on SmashFly's platform, Staple uses it as Olivia, who is a female. But this recruiting assistant really feels like a human. Chris mentioned earlier that people come into Staples and will actually think like, oh, wow, I actually talked to someone. She was great. And they actually have to say, oh, she's really not a human. That's why we say recruiting assistant, because chatbot just kind of sounds ancient to me, and it doesn't work as well. But one of the best things I think about this, and Chris kind of spoke to this, is that VIP experience to everyone in real time. I mean, you don't want to kind of shut people out. You want to give everyone immediacy and answers, even if you might not hire them. This recruiting assistant or chatbot does that. And the great thing is that it gives kind of that standard experience to everyone, so it's more positive for your brand. But if they do see someone, wow, they've answered yes, 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 yes to all of these screening questions, you can actually fast track them. Hey, you've met all of the qualifications. Let's have a pre-screen tomorrow. I'll schedule it for you. Think about that VIP experience for a candidate coming to your website. Wow, I've met the minimum qualifications. Someone's already scheduling a pre-screening with me. That moves so quickly. And if not, they feel like, wow, I've been asked some questions. I've been screened. Maybe I'll get something in the future. So that's what I think is really great about that. And I think it fits really well into kind of the inefficiency of the candidate black hole. And Chris, you'll kind of speak to what you're doing with the CRM, but just a little bit about the black hole. It's like, I just can't wait to never hear about the black hole again. I don't understand how this is still an issue, but I mean, it really is. For example, I mean, we found that 33% of Fortune 500 companies with a talent network or a CRM never send one thing to candidates. They say, hey, opt in. You're going to learn more. We're going to follow up with you. We're going to give you job openings. They never send one thing, even though they ask candidates to kind of jump through that hoop and say opt in and learn more. That's a huge issue. And I know, Chris, you guys felt it was a huge issue both on the candidate side, but also the recruiting side. You guys were struggling with kind of making sense of the recruiter side of having a black hole in your system. So talk a little bit about what you're doing in terms of nurturing in the CRM to kind of close that loop between recruiters and candidates.
Yeah, you're right. You know, I think any good talent acquisition professional has this feeling of you know, I think I don't want to say sadness, but you know, there's that feeling of when you can't get back to an individual, or you maybe forget, or what have you, and you know, when you're looking at candidate experience, and when you're looking at brand, and when you're looking at competition and economic competitive landscape, all those things matter today. I think you can go back, you know, a few years ago, and you didn't have to be as, I think, impressive as observant and as, you know, service mindset oriented towards an individual. You could maybe miss or forget, and that individual is still going to be there. You know, today they've got a multitude of offers, and so if you're not at the forefront of consistency, you're going to lose great talent. And so, you know, not only does that mean a consistent theme of messaging and communication, but you know, individuals want real-time feedback for questions they're asking. And so when we look at automation, not only do we have, you know, our recruiting assistant and it's sitting on certain requirements that individuals can interact with, but that recruiting assistant is also sitting on our website. So you can go on our website and ask about benefits, ask about our culture, ask about you know, certain company values, and it's going to be able to give you that. You know, again, 79, I think it is, or 81% of all folks that start the job search go to Glassdoor to read about your organization. And so we took a kind of a spin on that to be able to say, when they land on our career site, we want to be able to give them all the answers they want. And then you look at what we're doing with, again, our recruitment marketing team and developing that center of excellence. Not only are we looking at newsletters, but individuals really want to understand what it's like to work in your organization, what it's like to work on the floor that you work on, in the cube or office that you work on. They want to really try to feel as much as they possibly can before they, and I quote, buy, right, accept your position. So, not only is it newsletters, but what are the things that we experience, and I go as far as to say that we maybe even have taken for granted as an organization that we need to outwardly express to candidates, because those are at times differentiators. You can go back, 10 and 15 years ago, and benefits was the differentiator. And I remember hearing about this company that had ping pong tables and pinball machines, and they served lunch every week, and I'm thinking, who's this company? It was Google, and everyone wanted to hop on that kind of bus. And so a lot of those things are becoming almost just table stakes. Now you got to be able to show more of who you are and the feel of who you are, and so we're doing that via getting those newsletters and our outreach to those candidates or prospective candidates via our CRM and through SmashFly, and being able to personalize that. Again, one of the biggest stats that we read and heard from in-mails through LinkedIn was the fact that they're just the outreach isn't as personal as the individual wants it to be, and so we're able to not only embed videos and we're able to embed newsletters, but we can have consistency with that messaging. So that really helps, I think, kind of bring the individual out of that black hole and keep them at the forefront of who we are, and keep us on par with our competitors as they're hunting for that same type of talent.
Yeah, and I love that. I mean, it's really being smarter, because you're not asking the recruiter to think about, gosh, who do I need to follow up with? Who do I need to send this? It's really the technology and the CRM getting smarter about the people and what they're doing. Like a great example of this, too, is closing the loop if you have people that drop off the application process. So they finish half, and, no one ever follows up with them. I mean, they were interested enough to start this. What stopped them? No one really knows. Something in the CRM could trigger, hey, I actually saw that you were interested last week. You filled out half the application. Again, this isn't the recruiter. This is something smart in the CRM that can be automated. You should fill that out. We've seen some other customers have huge hires from this, not even completed applications, but, oh, wow, I actually did forget that. Thanks for reminding me, and thanks for caring. That's really what a lot of candidates think. Like, wow, they actually reached out to me. I should finish that. So that's just one more example of, closing that loop and making sure you're capitalizing on the interest that people have and what they start with your brand, and not just saying, oh, crap, we'll just let them go. Let's pay for more people at the top of the funnel and continue that. It really helps close the loop and give a better candidate experience. So moving on to the next inefficiency, spending hours scheduling. So this is a big one, and I'm excited for you to talk about this, Chris, and kind of the perceived efficiency that's come with this, and the real efficiency. But I just read a blog post that cited 56% of recruiters spend more than a full working day every week scheduling or rescheduling interviews. I mean, that's literally a fifth of their week, and that's a ton of open roles. So, I mean, I liken interview scheduling for recruiters to probably how I feel like scheduling an appointment with like a new doctor. It's like constant. It's like figuring out what works for everyone. It's like, this doesn't work for me. It does work for me. It's just a lot of admin work, and I'm sure that it's nightmarish and they really never want to do it again. And I know that you guys felt the same way about this at Staples. It's like, this is bogging down my people that could be talent advisors in just seriously looking at people's open calendars and rescheduling things with candidates. So just tell us a little bit about what the interview scheduling has kind of done for efficiencies with your recruiters, and how has it helped free them up to do other things?
Yeah, I mean, you literally touched on, Elyse. It was as much around trying to get a hold of the prospective candidate or applicant as it was the hiring manager, and trying to get them to, get back to you. And you can, we've all been there where you reach out to the hiring manager and say, hey, so-and-so applicant or candidate is available Tuesday and Thursday between 1 and 4. Can you let me know if one of those works? And they come back and say, I'm available, Wednesday at 2. And you're like, all right, now I got to go back and forth. And so we, again, went back to that kind of friction that we were looking at and said, hey, what can we do about being able to automate some of this? And so our chatbot and the recruiting assistant is able to offer up proposed times that are available by the hiring manager and send those to the candidate. And the candidate is able to choose which times work for them. And it also links to the recruiter's Outlook as well. And so, you will end up finding that the bot is able to do all that scheduling and some of the kind of back and forth. There's an option where, hey, none of these work. And so the bot's able to relook at Outlook and offer up other times that are going to be able to work until they can kind of land on a proposed time that is effective. And, so you could have a hiring manager that's traveling for a week. The recruiting assistant's able to still schedule that, coordinate that. I don't need to wait for that individual to get back to me, the hiring manager, and it's very seamless. And so it has saved us an immense amount of time. And in turn, we then can redirect that work that wouldn't have been getting done to our talent advisors to do outreach, nurture, source, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I think a really interesting use case, SmashFly actually just used this bot for scheduling for an event that we just went to, so something I can speak to. The other thing that I love about it, that's not just helping recruiters save time, it's again that candidate experience. So we found that we had, let's say, 18 pre-booked meetings at HR Tech, a very huge chaotic event. It's hard for people to stick on schedule. Emerson, when we actually used him, reminded every single person, hey, just to let you know, I'm putting this on your calendar. You have a meeting at the SmashFly booth at X amount of time. Not only did we see 100% of people come to the booth, which is insane if any of you have ever been to HR Tech, they actually had that reminder via their phone, right in a text, hey, remember you have this. It was on their calendar. People also said, wow, thanks for the reminder. We actually could see those conversations coming through. So again, for the candidate experience, if you hope they don't forget, but again, it's just kind of that extra boost that the company's reminding you. It comes right to your phone. It goes on your calendar. It's that seamless scheduling and rescheduling that helps the recruiter, but it also helps the candidate. So just kind of wanted to share that tidbit. So for the rest of these slides, I kind of want to fly through because I've been seeing some really great questions coming in. So this is kind of just a general inefficiency. I'll almost just, Chris, hand it over to you really quickly. But obviously, the more tools you have, the least amount of time every recruiter has to use each one. And I think what that really does is it increases the likelihood of not adopting, because who has time to adopt 5, 6, 7 tools? It also increases inefficiency because you don't really know which tools your team is using. Someone might use this tool all the time. Someone might use tool Z all the other time. Another person might say, this is too many. I'm going to go rogue and do whatever I want. So that's a huge inefficiency. And just, Chris, really quickly, kind of talk about your vision on a one-stop shop and really focusing on the tech you have, not adding anything new in 2019, focusing on, the 2 to 3 platforms you have, and that's it.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. What we wanted to do was consolidate. We wanted, and I use the analogy, we wanted to have not so many arrows in our quiver and really only give us 1 or 2 that we could really perfect and really become efficient in. So, we took a look at all of our systems, such as our ATS, our CRM, our chatbot platform, and various others, and looked at being able to kind of scale them and fit them into really 2. And it really is SmashFly, where we have our chatbot now living as well, and we have our ATS, and we've got our ability to be able to have our data in our ATS uploaded into SmashFly. So really the central point of record for us and really where our recruiters are going to be spending and are spending the majority, if not all their time, is within SmashFly outside of utilizing our ATS for dispositioning. So it really has, again, saved a lot of time and made their job much more efficient.
Great. So really quickly, all in all, I mean, flying through this, but you really hear that Staples is delivering experiences at scale and at speed, and that's kind of with that AI tool, plus with the TA operations team. Again, it's helping and supporting the recruiters to understand how do I kind of screen these people faster, how does the technology screen them faster, and how do we reach more people but also get quality. And that's that technology and process and driving insights that recruiters think, you know what, stop doing this. This isn't working for you. Spend more time doing this, kind of standardizing it. Number two, saving thousands of hours through automation and AI, and that's over a year. And that's, again, on the pre-screening when recruiters are like, wow, I've seriously asked the same 5 questions to 30 candidates this week. Why am I doing this? This is mind-numbing. That chatbot recruiting assistant actually can save that. And I think it makes recruiters happier. You know what I mean? It makes them actually like their job and kind of get back to what they're doing. And then reinventing Staples' approach to talent acquisition. I mean, as you've heard Chris talk about, they're really thinking about this from every angle very smartly and trying a lot of different things to try to figure out what's going to work moving forward. So before, I'm going to let Chris answer this one, and I'm sure I've seen this already pop up in the questions. Okay, so how do I do this? What if my leadership isn't like Staples? What if they're not totally bought in? How do I get the budget to actually buy this technology? Do you actually have to eliminate headcount to do all of this? Chris, this is a huge question. So talk about kind of those 3 things: budget, leadership buy-in, and kind of what your headcount looks like. Because I don't think you guys have drastically increased budget, and you're not being tasked to actually eliminate headcount. You're really rethinking about the skills on your team. So just share a little bit about that.
Yep. Yeah, from a budget standpoint, actually we've seen some reductions, which has been fantastic, right? Where do we get those reductions? Well, if you really look at what we did is we took across the enterprise and said, what are the systems, what are we using to get work done, and what do we not need to use, and what can we supplement with a different system, but also what can that different system we're going to look to supplement with also do to take away some of the redundancies of really just systems. And so, we took a look across section and started to consolidate. We looked and said, like I said, we said we don't want to have 10 arrows in the quiver. We really took a stance and said, hey, we don't need all the various kind of avenues that companies may think of that they're currently using to go and identify candidates. We really looked at what does the data say of where we're getting our return from, and if we're getting a return, why is that return happening? And then, and if we're not, why is it? And we need to make a decision, right? That we may not be using a certain platform to source candidates for. And then when you look at leadership, it wasn't so much around how do you get leadership bought in, is it was that it was really the business, really looking at, hey, I want people faster with more quality. And, we had to take that back and say, well, if that's really what the business needs and they want that and we want to deliver that, but we can't in our current state, what do we need to do that? And, really the business was the one that really we partnered with to be able to get everyone in sync with why we wanted to kind of transform who we are as a TA organization. And from a headcount standpoint, no, we haven't reduced headcount at all. Matter of fact, what we've been able to do is take individuals that we didn't know maybe they had certain skill sets because they were so consumed with a lot of things that they had to do in the previous age of recruiting, and give them, different opportunities within the organization. And we've reworked, or I should say realigned work to those recruiters, while we've got automation that's doing some of that work that the recruiters were being tasked with. And when we say doing rework, it's that nurturing of candidates. It's really spending time with the business, being in more staff meetings, understand conceptually what's occurring today and then what's going to be long-term the business need. And that was really valuable, where recruiters didn't have the time to be able to do that in the past.
Yeah, and I love that. And I know, talking to Lisa again, that that's kind of someone that's, I think, Chris's boss. She actually was saying that the budget has either decreased or stayed the same, but you guys have gotten smarter about what you're doing. And I love that it wasn't like, oh, well, we're going to, get this chatbot that screens. We're going to eliminate headcount. I love that Staples was thinking well, actually, the people that we have, how do we make them more effective? How do we actually get them to find more quality? How do we get them sourcing? How do we get them upskilled? So I know that not every business kind of has that opportunity, but I really love that, you're saying, no, we're not immediately eliminating headcount. We're finding new skills for these people at Staples that's probably going to continue retaining them and also making them more effective and productive for the business. So
correct.
I'm actually going to skip advice from Chris because I know there's questions, and his advice will come out in those questions, and we started late, so I want to make sure we get to questions. For people asking things about SmashFly, so yes, Staples is using SmashFly. You've heard kind of Chris mention a few things. We combine CRM, career site, events, and analytics, and a lot of that's powered by AI. Really focused on the recruiter experience as well as the candidate experience. I don't want to take any more time talking about that. Please kind of, reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn, or look at our website. I definitely want to get some questions to Chris. So I saw some come through that were really great. Chris, this is a great one for you. So what tasks are your recruiters at Staples performing now that the chatbot is doing the scheduling and screening work? What have you seen them actually start doing, 2 or 3 things?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, not so much that they're start doing, but because the scheduling and screening was monopolizing a good chunk of their day, they weren't able to spend time, with some of those candidates that they had been nurturing, outreach to them, picking up the phone and spending some time with them, or crafting an email to make that as personable as possible. Being able to be in staff meetings to understand what's occurring within our business and our organization, and then being able to bring that back and utilize that in our messaging to send out to candidates to really get them more enthralled with who we are as an organization. That was being missed. So, I think there's a lot more depth in what our recruiters are able to spend time with and send out to prospective candidates.
Got it. So this is actually an interesting question. So, and Chris, I think I'll share a perspective, and then maybe you can jump in. So how effectively does Emerson or the chatbot address a gap when several candidates that are equally qualified apply or maybe are being screened? Do we risk out on losing some good candidates through the bot? So I think the best way that I would describe AI is that you're never losing any people. And I don't know if you guys kind of saw this article with Amazon coming out and all of this about, bias in AI. There's a lot happening right now around how are you not going to be biased. So AI in the chatbot doesn't really say this person is never going to be a good fit. It just kind of prioritizes where recruiters can start. So if people are equally qualified, they might all be fast-tracked. If there's 5 of those people, the Emerson might say, you know what, all of these people should be pre-screened. So I never want to look at it like you're losing out on those candidates. It really is prioritization. We never want to use AI or a bot to say this person will never be a fit. That would be a really horrible thing. It's kind of just fast-tracking certain people that might be more likely to do that. And honestly, it's not much different than recruiters doing that the same way. They also make judgment calls. It just takes them a lot longer to kind of pour through those resumes.